Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA show. Technical difficulties aside, Dom, the weather is on the rise, and that means so is my heart, my soul, my spirit,
Mhm,
my body.
mhm,
I love when the weather starts getting a little bit warmer, but not too warm.
mm.
I'm not a huge like dog days of summer guy, you know. But I do enjoy this time of year. We feel like we kind of are skipping spring, to be honest, because ever since I moved here, it's done nothing but rain and be cold as shit,
Mm.
which kind of blows. But, that's the kind of welcome back that I would
Yeah,
expect to
right.
Ohio. So, Dominic, how are you doing? I know you've been having some golf excursions as of late. So, the weather down south in Ohio been treating you well?
Yes, it's been great, man. Those like 65 to 80, that's the ideal temperature range. No, it's just so perfect. No humidity, a nice breeze in the air, the sun hitting your skin. Ooh, it's just so much better than those cold, dark winter months. So we're getting into the fun part of the year, and we've got a fun podcast, I believe, to be had, Noah. I'm excited to break it down. We got another pay per view out in Jersey for the UFC. We got some one championship back in our lives with Mighty Mouse, and they're even in the States. It's going to be a fun weekend, Noah, don't you say?
Yeah, they are actually at the same arena that BKFC was in last week. So I wonder if the magic will continue
Mm,
in Broomfield, Colorado. I hope. I part of me kind of hopes it doesn't, Dominic, because I'm just going to be kicking myself even more for
yes,
not
true.
making that week long excursion to
Yeah.
Broomfield, Colorado, to potentially stay in somebody's
Basement.
basement
Yeah.
and not really do anything the whole week besides
Yeah.
go to those fights. So anyways, well, this is our preview show per usual. UFC 288 and one Fight Night 10. Dominic, it kind of snuck up on me that one has stopped calling it one on Prime. Now
Yeah.
they're labeling it one Fight Night. Do you support the change?
You know, sure, why not, right? It's still better than like a UFC Vegas insert number here, but after a certain point, these could turn into the same thing. Noah's going to be coming on here and saying one fight night. Dominic, what's the number again? Or insert number here. So maybe every 10 you change the hashtag. So after the Sat or Friday, we get a new one for the next time they're around. We'll do that.
Okay, I'll let yeah. There we go. There we go. But anyways, Dominic, we're actually not starting our show with
Mm-mm.
either of those because the biggest story going in MMA, Dominic, does not involve either promotion right now, at
Technically, no.
least, at
Well,
least directly.
yeah.
Um, your former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou, he's still looking. He's still looking for the right one. He's looking for the one. He's looking, not no pun intended, but he's looking for that gal to take to the ball with him. The one
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna take home to his family.
Mm-hmm.
And truthfully, Dominic, we've already talked about this a little bit just a few weeks ago.
True.
Kind of gave our thoughts on where things stood because now, Dominic, that's blown up. Everybody's talking about how Francis Ngannou has royally screwed up this free agency period, how he should have gone back to the UFC, should have taken a fight with John Jones, etc., etc., etc. The only headlines that keep popping up nowadays seem to involve other promotions saying, I'm out of the Ngannou sweepstakes. So the UFC, Dana White said he will
Mm-hmm.
never fight in the UFC again. BKFC, which I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure if anybody really thought was a realistic option, but it is an option. They said that his price was way too much for them.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Chatri Sityodtong with one coming out and saying, after being on the MMA Hour just a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, where he seemed very confident
Mm.
in getting a deal done with Ngannou. He had a meeting set up with him. I believe it was for either this past Monday or the Monday before. But Dominic, now he's come out, or at least
Yeah.
one via press release, whatever, has come out and said they are out of the one or the Ngannou sweepstakes. They cited non-financial terms being the reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, truthfully, Dominic, I've been listening to a lot of the on the nose segments on the MMA Hour. I actually highly recommend it to anybody who's looking for a little insight into some of this stuff because Ariel just be dropping these bombs
Mm-hmm.
in there, like stuff that really gives you an idea. At least it kind of reveals the curtain behind the curtain just a little bit to get you a better idea of what's going on.
Yeah.
So Ngannou apparently had this meeting with Chatri from one. During the meeting, Chatri seemed obviously, dead set on trying to get a deal done. Well, Ngannou tells him he took it more as a formality, more out of respect. That Dominic, he already has a verbal agreement in place with an MMA motion.
Mm.
Well, by process of elimination, there seem to be only two real names that could potentially sign him, and that would be Bellator and the PFL.
Mm-hmm.
Ariel took it a step further, Dom, and said Bellator's not been very actively involved in these negotiations anyways.
Mm.
So with all that being said, I think it's pretty clear from day one I've been saying it. I think it's even more clear now. At some point here in the next couple weeks, there will be an announcement that Francis Ngannou has been signed to the PFL.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My question for you, Dominic, if at the end of this free agency period and all that it's all that's been involved, all the twists and turns, if it ends with Ngannou signing for another MMA organization, does all this feel like a mistake, big waste of time, etc.? Your thoughts?
And I feel like you're mainly got to be asking from like a fan perspective, I would imagine, right?
I mean, yeah, time will tell, I guess, if it's. But I mean, no, I mean, I guess in a way, it's kind of, yeah, like it's a fan perspective. We have a limited perspective here, but Dominic, I think you can kind of say like whether you feel as if it's. I mean, if it ends with him signing with another MMA promotion that is not the UFC,
Mm-hmm.
does that feel like a mistake or a waste of time? Like I mean, how does that feel to you as someone who's sitting on the outside just observing this all?
I think maybe from like a legitimacy standpoint, in terms of him going from the best heavyweight in the world to now to PFL, it could be a mistake. For us as fans, it's easy to think it's a mistake. Like, oh, why just go back to the UFC while you still can instead of choosing the PFL? And I guess I was trying to wrap my head about how I wanted to answer this question even earlier, because I know a lot of it stemming from his original of becoming a free agent when it first was a thing was that he wanted to pursue these big boxing fights. And so clearly financially a deal with like the PFL would be a mistake compared to God knows how much money he could have made in like a big boxing fight with a Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder. So I feel like there's definitely more avenues to call it a mistake rather than the right choice. But I mean, obviously I'd rather see him in the UFC and fighting John Jones and, Sergey Pavlovich and whatnot. But, I don't hate the idea of him in the PFL because of maybe this super fight division could turn into something cool. I'm still pessimistic just because we haven't gotten to see anything about it yet. But him in a season, him in a super fight division could still be fun. This is a hard one for me to kind of weigh and answer this question.
I mean, as a fan, I don't get me wrong, I love the PFL, Dominic, and Ngannou would be a huge get for the PFL. But also, like, there's not a single guy on the PFL's heavyweight roster that I'm like, let's do
Exactly.
that. Let's
Yeah.
give me that fight.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the other heavyweight free agents or heavyweights that are outside of the UFC, I mean, what are you looking at? Ryan Bader?
Yeah.
You're looking at maybe once heavyweight champion. I mean, heavyweight's not, the deepest division
Yeah.
in MMA, not
Yeah.
by far. And this is all like, there is a certain perspective to this. I didn't know how to really fully illustrate that to you, but like, at the end of the day, if Ngannou's happy,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Props to him. Like, he did it the road less traveled, and
He really went
I
all in on himself, man.
and
You
I
know,
have nothing but respect for it. I think the people who are coming down as hard as they are on him are kind of out of pocket here a little
Mm,
bit. I mean, it's one thing to think it's like, I don't know, like how can you say it's like, I know we've kind of, I don't know what exactly we said when we talked about it last time, but I seem to remember us kind of talking about how, I don't know if mistake was the word, but we definitely seem to be pretty heels in the sand. I mean, Dominic, you remember that when we were talking
mm-hmm,
about that a couple weeks ago? Uh,
mm-hmm.
do you remember what exactly we even said on the topic? It seemed like we were much more pessimistic about it at the time. I don't remember for sure.
Yeah, because we were talking about how, like, if BKFC saying it costs too much, and we were kind of like, oh, maybe because this is before the PFL thing came out. It's like,
Mm,
oh no, maybe no one's wanting Francis, and then obviously it's a mistake. So I feel like at least now we have that PFL aspect for
yeah.
this week, added in.
I'll say it like this, Dominic. If this ends, and we won't know for another few years,
Mm.
if this ends with him signing with the PFL and then just doing the PFL, I don't see how you
Yeah,
can call it anything other than a mistake.
right.
The
Yeah,
only way this ends as a success is if he ends up getting one of those big boxing fights.
think so.
That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I mean, and I mean, again, success is sort of measured on however I'm sort of measuring it from like maybe some of it's kind of just my own feelings on like what I think I would do in that situation. And I
Yeah,
think that's a lot. There's a lot of projecting going on in the community
yeah.
right now on him. He measures the success. Like if he's happy, he's able to, keep his family supported. Then, I mean, again, I'm not one to tell him he's wrong for doing that. I'm just saying for what's in my head, the best option for legacy, for a career, for
Hmm.
earnings, all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It feels like if this ends with him just continuing his MMA career in the PFL, then it's a huge mistake.
Right.
And if
Yeah.
that's where the value is, I mean, part of the reason he wanted to leave the UFC was to pursue boxing. It was a
Yeah.
big dream of his. There were some other things, fighter rights or fighter pay seemed to be an
Hmm.
issue. And again, we don't know fully behind the scenes on what's, Chatri said non-financial terms. Apparently he wanted a seat on the board at one and all
Hmm.
this stuff. And now Francis has told Ariel that's not the case. I don't know. It's a
Mm.
lot of he said right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in order for this to feel like it was worth the time, he's got to end up boxing somebody for big money. And
Hmm.
Dominic, it's kind of interesting how at one time Tyson Fury, after he knocks out Dillian White, he brings Ngannou into the ring.
It felt like a done
Then
deal almost.
just a couple months ago, we have Deontay Wilder saying, Ngannou, I'll take you on in boxing, and then I'll come into the to a cage and fight you in MMA.
Mm.
And like not even like as a trash talking type
Right.
statement. He was saying it out of respect. Like I want
Yeah.
to do this. Like, they've completely ghosted Ngannou. Fury's looking at his next fight, probably going to be against Andy Ruiz this summer. And then there's the big rumors coming out of, I believe, Saudi Arabia that they're trying to get two massive heavyweight fights to end the year. Fury versus Usyk,
Okay.
Joshua versus Wilder. If that's the case, Dominic, Ngannou don't fit in that picture.
He's an afterthought, to say the
And
least.
and
Yeah.
and that's why this kind of hurts because it feels like he was sort of used by these guys to
Mm.
kind of build them up a little bit, give them a pop in the
Hmm.
the trends and whatnot, keep their name relevant because these boxers aren't boxing as
Yeah.
often as some of the top MMA fighters are fighting year to year. And now it just feels like they got their big fights and they're like, you know what, Ngannou, you're kind of
The
by
MMA
the wayside.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man,
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting. I'm with you though. I think we hear something soon. Soon, like by
They
the end
have
of
to
May.
because all this bad vibes going on right now, you got to
Yeah.
think they're like sweating us a little bit. Like, oh my god, these people are really shitting on Francis. Like, we just need to get an announcement out there. Kayla Harrison has said an announcement would be coming at some point here soon. This was now a month ago
Yeah.
about that pay-per-view super fight division. Dominic, I'm gonna make a prediction, but obviously it's kind of a far-fetched prediction. I think the announcement of Ngannou is gonna be headlining the first pay-per-view super fight card, and you'll
Yeah.
see Kayla as the co-main on that.
Oh yeah, they'll load it. Yeah. Well, they kind of have to, right? They
Yeah,
kind of have to go balls to the wall for this first one, wouldn't you say? So that would be a way to do it. That's for sure.
they need their BKFC last
Yeah.
weekend moment.
Yeah. They
Like,
need that moment.
and they need to go big. You put both those names on the card. Maybe you throw on, I don't know. I know Burgos is competing in, maybe Anthony Pettis, people like that. Get the names on there. Try to get a number. That's something to be proud of. I know a lot of people are throwing out there now how Ngannou's never actually sold over 300K as a main eventer. So that would be a big prove it for him. Big prove it opportunity to see if he can carry a card.
And quickly too, the problem with that is like we found out today, Chris Cyborg re-signed with Bellator, or it might have been last night when we're
Yeah,
recording this,
yeah.
but she's back with Bellator. That rules out a huge fight for Kayla because she's not in the season. So it's like, all right, well, who do we match Kayla up with? And like you just said, outside of the UFC, heavyweight's not also stacked between PFL, Bellator, and one. The other three, like there are good names, but they have to be able to come to the PFL and do a pay-per-view. So if we're only talking PFL competition, it's still tough because you still need that second dance partner with them, right? You can't just load a card with Francis and Kayla, but they're fighting two people that no one's ever heard of. And I think that's a very tricky thing the PFL is going to have to try and figure out over these next few weeks, couple months. So
Yeah, more than likely, you're right. I think in MMA, especially, that's less conventional where you get these lopsided matchups. I mean, look at Canelo Alvarez's boxing in Guadalajara this weekend against John Ryder, and everybody's like, "Who the fuck is John Ryder?" So,
yeah,
like, if the biggest boxers in the world can get away with it sometimes, but
yeah,
I don't think Ngannou's quite at that level of sellability, if that's a word.
right, yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I expect us to be talking about this again here shortly,
Yes,
and
yes,
I'm excited to do so because hopefully we do get more on that pay-per-view super fight division. I'm very intrigued.
amen.
But anyways, Dominic, we are going to move on to UFC 288, your main event for the bantamweight title. The King of Cringe is back. Triple C is back, Dominic. He will be looking to reclaim the title he never lost. But in order to do it, he's going to have to go against a man who is fighting not just for defense of his bantamweight title, but also he is fighting here to be the sole record holder for UFC bantamweight wins and maybe title defenses as well.
Damn.
So, yeah, I'm not. The second one, I'm not 100% sure on, but it kind of seems right, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
they haven't had a ton of champions. Like Cruz had such a long layoff. TJ's held the belt a couple times, but like, I'm not sure.
It's
I think
true.
TJ had two. Cruz had. I don't even know how many Cruz had because Cody obviously lost his
Mhm.
first title defense.
You're
So
right.
Jan
Wow.
first title defense. I think that's what's on at stake here for Sterling. So a huge legacy moment on the line for Sterling. And Dominic, I'm going to also that stat that has not left my brain since I heard it for the first time.
I saw this and it blew my mind.
So, okay? So was this if this was your first time seeing this? I saw this on Twitter a few weeks ago, and it
Yeah.
blew my mind. How? Because you know me, Dominic, I'm the guy that's always saying fight years matter more
Yeah.
than your actual age. This stat just shits on
We got
that
stats
theory
to back
because
up Noah.
fighters from 125 pounds all the way up to 175 or 170 pounds in UFC title fights, Dominic, are 2-28 in UFC history. And you want to know who has both of those wins?
No, Mighty wouldn't have been Mighty Mouse. I don't know.
Tyron Woodley.
That makes sense. He was older as a champion. You're right. That makes sense.
And now
Okay.
one of those was against a man even older than him and Damian Maia. So like, yes, the Darren Till win, of course, was a huge one. And that was at 170 pounds. So if you go below 170, Dom,
wow,
they ain't never been a champion over the age of 34.
Wow. That's nuts. That's nuts.
Yeah. It completely shits on what my big theory through this whole podcast has been about fight years matter more than age. This theory shits all over it, Dominic. Anyways.
And Henry's 36. I see.
Yeah. So you can see why I brought this up, because Henry Cejudo's not only just 36 years old, but Dominic, he's coming off a 3-year layoff. 3-year let. Read the screen. The odds are dead even. Minus 110 each way. We have a complete pick 'em. Why is that? Just why?
Why? No,
I
it's
knew
got to
this was
be
coming from Dom. I knew that was coming.
It's got to be the greatness of Henry Cejudo, I suppose. That's the only thing I can think of. Aljamain Sterling he's damn sure proved to me how good he is. You know, that little illegal knee that happened years ago at this point now has gone by the wayside. He dominated Peter Yan in their second one. Well, dominated might be a little bit too far of a stretch, but you get my point. The rounds that he won, he dominated there. That's better. Then he beats TJ Dillashaw. Yes, TJ had a bum shoulder, but he still dominated that fight. He's won 8 fights in a row. That's a win streak that snuck up on me, Noah. 8 straight wins against progressively better competition. And yet it's a pick'em. It's Henry left during his absolute best years, during an absolute tear that he was on, winning multiple championships, defending championships, coming in, and he left the UFC on a 3-fight finishing streak, not even letting people get out of the 3rd round in these title fights. It's in that you add in that Olympic pedigree and that one area that Aljo is so great in. What was Henry Cejudo a gold medalist in? That same fucking area. And that's why I think we have a pick'em in this fight, Noah. I ain't got a clue who's winning this one. Why do you think it's a pick'em?
I think it's a pick'em because it's really hard, based off what we last saw from Henry Cejudo. It's hard to really know where Sterling really has the advantage here, to be honest. I think jiu-jitsu might be the big one, the submissions. That's probably his big advantage here. But if you're looking at wrestling, which Sterling has prided himself on being a great wrestler, Cejudo's better.
Yep.
Striking, Cejudo's better.
Yep.
Maybe length, reach, you give to Sterling. And Dominic, I think at the end of the day, these odds actually, in my opinion, and you know how much I love Henry Cejudo. Like, I've been a big ride or die with Triple C. I've said multiple times, I don't know about on the podcast, but off the podcast, Dominic, I think he's one of, if not the greatest combat sports athletes of all time. Gold medal, 2 UFC titles. I mean, I don't know how you can not have that guy up there. I actually think these odds say more about the lack of respect for Aljamain Sterling than any sort of inflating of Cejudo here. I think
like
Sterling, Dominic Sterling, you just said it. Like, for us, I mean, he's proven it. The way he handled Yan in that rematch, I thought that was like the biggest lock of the year for me.
Yeah.
Was Jan's going to dominate this fight? He did it the mistake. No. Sterling, the human backpack, as some call him, he was every bit of it there. Then you followed it up with the TJ Dillashaw fight. Well, Dominic, you got controversy. TJ goes into the fight with a shoulder that can't stay in place for more than a couple minutes. And what happens? The shoulder pops out. You know, it's unfortunate, really, to be honest with you. It's very unfortunate that happened the way it did. And some people might look at that fight and say, well, TJ was older. He was, he had his run since coming back from the PED suspension had been kind of iffy. Like, yeah, he beat Sandhagen, but a lot of people didn't think he won. It feels like there's these caveats in almost every Sterling fight. Like
Yeah.
every he seemed to get a brunt of the shit for the illegal knee when he was never understood that. So Sterling has not been a popular champion, Dominic, and unfortunately for him, I think that has lowered his perceived value here. And I quite frankly don't get it. You see that stat I just read? I understand Cejudo is great. He is greatness personified. He has done it through his whole life in combat sports. But Dominic, that is the past. He's 36 years old. I will happily give him an opportunity to prove me wrong here. But Dominic, I see no other way to bet this fight than Aljamain Sterling money line.
Ah,
I took
yeah.
it. I took it early in the week. I was shocked because in the lead up to this fight, I thought for sure I was going to be on Cejudo pretty heavy. But then this statistic has
Yeah.
shifted my brain so much, mixed with the 3-year layoff,
Yeah.
mixed with the fact that Sterling does have quite a big size and reach
He's
advantage. And
big.
when he's a
Aljo's
guy
big.
who is going to win this fight likely by getting to the back and using submissions, that could be a big advantage for him when he's got those long limbs that he can just throw off of at any time. If Cejudo's going to wrestle his way to a victory here, he's going to have to be defending submissions for the whole 25 minutes. So
Yeah.
that's really a long-winded way of saying why the fight odds are so close and ultimately why I disagree with them being that close, Dominic. How do you feel? Do you feel like Cejudo should be this close with Sterling, or have I convinced you otherwise?
No, I think I like don't have a problem with a pick'em because it does feel like, oh boy, I don't know who
Yeah,
is winning it. So
right.
in that sense, yes. But in terms of what you are saying with the disrespect toward Aljo and his skill set, and people maybe just don't like him, yada yada yada, because a lot of the obviously odds are just public money at the end of the day. Who's betting who? And it seems pretty dead even right now. But I think what's keeping him back from being like a minus 130, maybe that would have been about as high as he could have went, but still an obvious favorite at minus 130 is those narratives that you touched on there. And man, I'm glad that you kind of had some action. I mean, I have action on this fight, but I didn't go with a winner. But I like that you kind of went with it, and I know that had to hurt you to do it, but stats talk, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
what do
Yeah.
you
I mean,
think?
don't get
Like,
me
this
wrong.
fight should just be incredible, I think.
No, I completely agree. I love this fight. I think there's so much intrigue with this fight because Dominic, if Cejudo comes back and looks 90% of what he looked like when we last saw him against Dominic Cruz,
Then he's
then
still
these
so
odds are
good.
right. These odds are right, and
Yeah,
ultimately they may undervalue Cejudo.
yeah.
But it's hard for me to be super confident. I mean, really, let's look at it like this, Dominic. Why did Henry retire? Why did he really retire? Because he's back 3 years later,
Hmm.
fighting for the same title that he gave up to walk away from the sport to begin with. Did
Yeah.
he leave in hopes that the UFC would pay him more money to come back and maybe fight for a featherweight title?
Hmm.
Well, that doesn't seem to have happened. But ultimately, he's back. A lot of people have made this same observation that they don't really believe he was ever truly retired. And
Right.
while I kind of agree with what they're saying, I also just don't really understand why he retired to begin with. If
In his
ultimately
prime too.
yeah, like ultimately now he's back 3 years later fighting for that same title that again he never lost. So
Yeah.
I'm just having a hard time wrapping my brain around. I mean, sometimes guys need to take a few years off and recover. I mean, GSP did it way back
I know
when, and
he had a baby, started a
yeah,
family and
okay.
stuff,
So I
but
mean, these are all great things. Like I just wonder if there was something bigger in
yeah.
mind when he walked away, and now it's almost like I kind of just need to get back in there. I really didn't want to walk away. I sort of called my shot, didn't really go my way, and now I'm fighting Sterling in a fight that I really didn't see for my. I saw bigger things for myself than this when I walked away 3 years ago. So. And you got to think, I mean, if he's all about the legacy, right? Triple C, gold medal, 2 UFC titles. This win obviously does a lot for him legacy-wise, but it's not the fight for his legacy, Dominic. That comes if he wins and secures a fight with the winner, hopefully in his mind, Volkanovski, but the winner of Volkanovski, Rodriguez. So could he be looking ahead here? Could he look ahead to that next fight and not really understand the threat ahead of him in Sterling?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because he has presented a list. This is what he wants. Sterling as his comeback warm-up fight. It's how he just said it on the press conference before we hopped in here. Then he wants to fight Sean O'Malley next. He wants to defend and beat Sean O'Malley. And then he wants Volkanovski. That's the 3 fights he wants in that order. Give me your thoughts on that. That's the legacy piece, I guess, right? You know?
Yeah, I'm shocked that he is so outwardly saying he wants the O'Malley fight next. I mean, part of it shouldn't surprise me because O'Malley's the biggest payday in the bantamweight division. But also, I felt like for Henry, if you have an opportunity to go straight to featherweight, why wouldn't you?
Right, yeah.
But, you know, I mean, is an O'Malley fight more money than a champ fight with Volk?
Ooh, maybe a year ago, but Volk's pretty big now. I don't know. Maybe it still is. Pay-per-view wise, probably. I guess it still does better. I would imagine. But like, am I crazy for thinking that I don't even know if him and O'Malley would headline a pay-per-view?
I was about to say that. Like it's hard to imagine it. Maybe that's just because the UFC don't love giving the lower weight classes main events. But I mean, I feel like it could for sure. O'Malley's he's kind
big,
of a guy. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question.
I got another question on top of a question then. Because of him being so adamant on O'Malley next to defend the title, O'Malley next, all week long at the presser today. That's all he was talking about him, making fun of him, already setting the tone and the narrative to build that fight up. Think, you know, since he kind of left the UFC out of nowhere, you think they kind of put a little clause in to say you got to defend this belt at least once? I would imagine.
Yeah, this is why I said. This is why before you presented me with that he said that, I was kind of saying that's what he thinks could be next for him is that jump up to featherweight. But it would not surprise me if the UFC were kind of like, really, you want to come back and fight for a title? Like, what are the chances? And you've been talking about fighting Volk for a while now. Like,
Yeah.
We want O'Malley in a title fight. You're going to fight him if you win. I don't know. Maybe.
Because, you know, like GSP came back, won a belt, never defended it. Like, I don't think they're just letting people come back off the couch now for a title if you're not going to defend the belt immediately next, I think.
Yeah, they were pissed when GSP left. And my man had, what did he have? I almost said diverticulitis, but that's what Brock
Lesnar
had.
He did have a stomach thing, though, I think.
But, poor guy. But, yeah, it's a great fight, Dominic, at the end of the day. It's absolutely a great fight. It deserves to be in the spot in the main event, in my opinion. I know some people have felt a little underwhelmed by the card as a whole, and I can't fault anybody for thinking that. We've lost some fights in the lead up here.
Of course.
But I do think it's worthy of being a main event. And I think for Sterling to win here, and he's kind of in that category where Woodley was when he beat Darren Till, where everybody was kind of like, all right, I may not like the guy, but I can't deny that he's good. And obviously, unfortunately, though, Woodley kind of from there wasn't able to build on that. Sterling could.
And you know what's sad, and this could be a Monday piece too, but one more thing now that's in my brain as we go. This is for the hater side of Sterling, because we know that there's a lot of Sterling haters. If he comes in and dominates or just wins, people are just going to say Henry came off of a 3-year layoff, so what's it matter anyway? So even if he wins this one, there's still going to be a negative connotation next to Sterling's name, and it's unfortunate for him. It really is.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, but at the end of the day, if you etch your name in the bantamweight record books, I mean, there could be an argument if he wins here, Dominic. Again, Monday piece. He might be the best UFC bantamweight of all time.
Very good point.
Let's move on to the co-main event. And that's right, we're giving it its own headline here.
As it should.
This is a round non-title co-main event to determine the next welterweight title challenger after Colby Covington gets his warranted title shot against Leon Edwards. I'm talking, of course, about what's his name again? I'm just kidding. Remember the name.
I see what you did there.
Belal Muhammad taking on, Gilbert Burns. Wait a minute. Is this just a headline from last month? Nope.
He's
That's
fighting
right,
every month.
everybody. Gilbert Burns in his second co-main spot in 2 months. Call this guy Caio Bahayo. He's just taking on co-mains like his life depends on it. But no, Gilbert Burns stepping up here. Belal, of course, stepping up here, coming off the couch. Gilbert Burns staying very active. Both these guys, Dominic, obviously there's a lot at stake. You're looking at the winner of this has a title shot basically in the bag. Dana said it at the press conference, I believe. But bigger thing at stake here might be the 2023 Joey Award. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I remember you saying that even last month before this was even rumored, really, and now he's definitely in the front runner. I mean, we are in the first week of the 5th month of the year, and Gilbert Burns, come Saturday, will have fought in 3 of those 5 months of the year. I mean, people don't do that, especially number 5 ranked fighters in the world, Noah, in their weight class.
No.
We don't do that. And so you got to respect Gilbert Burns here, and you have to show mad props to Belal coming off of Ramadan too, and he's a big muscular guy, has to cut a ton of weight on essentially 3 weeks at most notice, and you're going 5 rounds. We're talking 2 guys that want a title fight, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to get that title fight. And this is the people's main event, even though we're getting a fucking awesome, title fight main event. This is huge. Belal has never been in the spot where so many eyes are finally on him, right? All these wins that he's accumulated, but people haven't liked his fight style, or he hasn't made a name for himself. And now, even at the press conference, before we got on, playing a little bit of heel, digging into the New Jersey crowd, kind of getting them proud.
I love that line about the Brooklyn Nets. That was
Yes.
that was a cold line, man. That's a cold line.
And Gilbert's like everyone's favorite fighter right now. Everybody wants some of Gilbert Burns. He was even a fan favorite, for the most part against Jorge. I know it was in Miami, so he was obviously the hometown guy. But people liked. Maybe there were more boos than what I heard. I know it made a bad.
There was a lot of boos stuff,
but there weren't when he won that fight. Then I'll put it that way. Now he's back again. And you have a question, I guess, lined up after that. I don't even know what question you even asked me for. I'm just rambling about how much I'm ready for this fight to happen.
I think all I said was, what do you think of, or something about the 2023 Joey Award?
Oh,
but
yeah.
Okay. That was more of that was just a dumb throwaway question. I just made that face because I was like, man, Gilbert was getting shredded at the press conference. But you're right. I think from the moment he went in there, pretty handedly won that fight.
Did the thing, yeah.
And now you see what's happening here. He's turning around real quick. I mean, he's going to be the backup fighter for that Leon Colby fight. I think a lot of people have definitely, for that fight, even though he's from Florida, like Jorge's the Miami guy, someone's going to be the villain, right?
True.
But even you are right in a sense of, like, I think for outside of just that city on that night,
there we
I
go.
think the majority of MMA fandom has, as a whole, been behind Gilbert and what he's been doing here. And I want to get behind both guys. Like, I love that it would have been very easy for both these guys to, out of spite, considering they both got kind of passed over for a guy in Colby Covington, who is great, who's fought for the title multiple times, but since his last title fight and where he lost to Usman by decision, he's only won one fight, and that was against Jorge Masvidal. That's kind of been the story for his activity since his first title fight loss to Usman, where he sort of wins one, then he's been squatting on his spot a little bit, and it feels like the UFC are sort of rewarding him on this idea that he weighed in to be a backup fighter. Again, we've talked about that at length. I'm not trying to get Colby fans to call me fat again. I mean, let's just not even go there, right? But in here, I think it could have been easy for these two guys out of spite to say, no, I'm squatting on my spot. I'm like, I don't want to fight anybody else. I deserve to fight for the title, especially Belal Muhammad. The streak he's been on. And then Gilbert, considering, even if you take away this fight, he's fought twice in very big spots in the first quarter of 2023. Like, I think that says a lot of something about him. And yet they're deciding, you know what? If I really want to earn this title fight, I got to go through him. Because they know that the other guy in the other corner, is the only guy who can take that title shot away from him at this
Mm-hmm.
point. So I respect the hell out of it. Now I'll get to the question that I kind of wrote on the script for you, Dominic. I mentioned 5-round, non-title fight, co-main event. I think this is only the third or fourth time that's happened in UFC history.
Mm-hmm.
Who benefits more from this being 5 rounds?
If we're coming into this fight, regular fight camps, normal circumstances, I answer Belal Muhammad 10 times out of 10. But not this one. This is not normal circumstances. Gilbert Burns, again, this is going to be his third fight of the year. He's essentially just been in training camp the whole fucking year. All of 2023, he's just been in a training camp. That's got to be super beneficial. He didn't look tired at all in the fight with Masvidal. That went the distance. 3 rounds, of course. Belal, big guy, as I already said, cutting a lot of weight. There was a rumor he had to cut 44 pounds. I saw that wasn't actually true. Regardless of how much it was, he's cutting a lot of weight. He's a very physical specimen, honestly. And, to come in not having a full training camp against a guy like Gilbert Burns and the more active guy, I lean Gilbert here. A lot of people are saying this goes all 5. I think it goes long, but I don't know. I kind of like inside the distance for this fight, although I didn't bet it yet anyways. I don't know. There's something about the hunger in these guys, and maybe Belal recognizing, oh man, if I try and drag this out 5 rounds, it's just going to hurt me more than it helps me. Maybe he goes in and we see the most aggressive Belal we've ever seen, and that includes the Sean Brady version of Belal that we've seen. But I think Gilbert actually I would favor the 5 rounds for him under this circumstance with all the activity, the freshness. He's been in there. He's had a feel for the cage and go on 15 minutes already. He's never been one to tire necessarily anyway. Like even in his title fight with Kamaru, I don't think he necessarily got tired in those later rounds when he lost. I think that was just Kamaru setting an insane pace and piecing him up on the feet. I don't know, man. Do you think Gilbert or do you still think Belal?
Well, let me just say, out of all the opinions I've heard on this topic, you're the first one to give Gilbert Burns that respect there.
Yeah.
Everybody's been kind of going the other way on this, but I think you bring up a great point. Nobody's taken into account that Belal's not getting that full training camp here.
Mm-mm.
Now, do I expect that to really hold him back a ton? Maybe not. And Dominic, there could be a factor here where, yes, Gilbert staying active, it's almost like he was in a training camp the whole time, like you just said. But also, he's going to have to cut some amount of weight for the second time in 30 days. Like that could have a very big impact on not just his cardio, but his ability to take any sort of punishment, which, of course, can wear you down from there. Who does it favor? God, you really made a great point about Belal not having that full training camp. I think I'm still going to go Belal just off the fight style.
Yeah.
Gilbert's going to come in here look for a finish. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. I think that's what he's going to want to do here. I think that's what he feels like he needs to do to secure that win, because if you're Gilbert Burns, you have to expect that you're going to be getting that same pace, that same pressure from Belal Muhammad in round 5 that you'll get in round 1.
Mm-hmm.
I expect Belal to be spamming takedown attempts here. There's no need for him to make this a stylistic showing like he did against Sean Brady, because Dana just said if you win, you're in. So for him, he's going to look to wrestle the fuck out of Gilbert Burns here. And can he do it? Yes, he can. He's one of the strongest guys at welterweight. We gotten stronger through the years. Feels like his cardio has become more of a weapon for him.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem, Dom, you're right. It wasn't necessarily the cardio that got Gilbert out of there in that fight with Usman, but he did wilt under the pressure.
Yeah.
And I do think that could become a factor here if he can't get that finish in round 1, in round 2. If he starts getting taken down, getting slammed, getting dragged to the mat, gets back up, gets dragged back down, Belal really trying to pull out all the stops to take the soul out of Gilbert Burns. Once that pressure is still coming at you in round 4 and you feel like your back's against the wall, I want to believe Gilbert's going to fight back, but we've seen him not give up, but he has wilted under that sort of pressure. So I think the 5 rounds ultimately favors Muhammad, but I will admit, not as much as I had been hearing, according to what you brought up, because I think that's a great point.
Yeah, dude, and that's the thing, because a lot of that 5 rounds does, come down to what are we going to see from these guys? Because you're right. Gilbert, I think, does look for a finish, but I wouldn't be surprised if Belal tries to come out again and do just like, I don't know. He shouldn't, I don't think, because this isn't the type of fight I think you should do that, because Gilbert is so dangerous. Like, Gilbert is much more dangerous than Sean Brady in that type of fight. But I don't know. There's something in me that just thinks Bilal's going to, I don't know. Maybe some sort of hybrid between like the Sean Brady and the Vicente Luque Belal that we saw. Because, Luque, a training partner of Gilbert Burns too. So he's kind of gotten a feel somewhat for that camp and what they do. He had a very high pace and pressure to Vicente Luque. A lot of it standing, but he did use some grappling. He used the clinch and whatnot. I'm calling it now a hybrid version of the Sean Brady Belal and the Luque Belal, right there in the middle, I think.
But I don't see why. Like, why? What's the reason for him to fight like that? Because you got to think, Dominic. Dana just said, you win, you get the title fight.
I know.
Why wouldn't we see the Stephen Thompson Belal Muhammad here that just looks to stuff you with takedowns and does not care if the fans like it or not? And I mean, because if he fights the way you're picturing, the way he fought Luque, the way he fought Sean Brady, yes, he looked great in those fights, Dominic, but that is not an advantageous style to bring to Gilbert Burns. He'll get his clock clean doing that. So
I know.
I don't see why he would when there's no real incentive for him to do that.
I think he sees a man like Colby who doesn't deserve it on merit, but who has a name and who puts asses in seats. And he says, okay, this is how I'm going to get passed up. All right, let me take my turn. Look, we're seeing him turn heel, fucking with the fans in Jersey. Now he's trying to become more fight style friendly for fans too. I don't know, man. I just got a little something in my tummy that's telling me, and I could be so wrong on this on Saturday. I could be so wrong, but I'm going to stick on this hill until they get into the cage, man. I don't know what it is. I think that's the narrative for me. Oof.
My prediction, you're going to be so wrong. But I respect that you put your heart on your sleeve there and went for it. But I get it. That's not really like, yes, these guys have game plans, but a lot of it happens in the moment. And like, for all we know, Muhammad might go in there and fight like the worst type of fight he could, like his worst performance ever, just for whatever reason. And then you'll be proven right. But I don't see why he would. I'd be so stunned. I won't be stunned if Gilbert finishes him, but I think it's going to have to be Gilbert fighting off a lot of takedown attempts, and that can be done. Yeah. But it's just going to be tough for him to do, I think. I think this fight will go pretty long. I'm not necessarily confident in a decision, but I think it definitely goes into those championship rounds.
Dude, that's the most intriguing thing for me, is if Gilbert keeps this standing and just if Gilbert makes it his type of fight. I'm so interested to see, can Belal answer the call and, these types of scenarios, and for Gilbert too, to continue answering questions. Cause he's on a tear and he looks great right now, but this is a way different style of fighter than, why am I blanking on who he fought in January? Oh, Neil Magny. And then, of course, Jorge last month. This is an awesome doubleheader 5-rounders here.
Yeah, we both have completely different ideas of how this fight's going to play out, and I think that just makes it all the more fun.
Yes, 100%.
Let's get into the rest of UFC 288, Dom, because there is a lot of good fights on here that maybe aren't quite getting the shine that they deserve. Dominic, I'm going to take this one first. There's some good fights on here that we will talk about momentarily, but out of pride, out of respect, whatever you want to call it, I give the first showing here for Drew Dober, Matt Frevola.
It was only right.
Yeah. The headliner of your prelims. I think this is a terrific fight. Shocked. I'm actually shocked that Drew Dober is as big of a favorite as he is, as much as I love the guy. I'm actually surprised that you agree with me, because you have faded Matt Frevola multiple times I
This
think
is true.
that Terrence McKinney knockout, you will never be able to live. You will never
Never.
let it go because
No.
I think you still look at him. You're like, this guy's gonna get knocked out in 7 seconds. But I honestly, in my head, thought this would be a much closer fight on the odds. So Dominic, I couldn't do it. I couldn't bet on Drew Dober, and ultimately, I also couldn't bet on Matt Frevola, even though my betting brain was saying take fucking steamroller, damn it, at plus 175. I did try to put a little action on this fight, but truthfully, Dominic, it's going to be fun. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be wild. It's what these two guys always do when they step in. And I look forward to it every time. Shout out Drew Dober. He's going to be trying to make another case. He feels like he's been snubbed for the Joey last year, Dominic. He was one of the nominees. Obviously not a guy who is fighting in title fights or huge, like, top 5 matchups. But if he continues the win streak he built last year, we may see him in a big one here soon.
God, no, he went 3-0 last year, all 3 by finish. Knocked out Bobby Green, the first man to do it since Poirier. And Matt, the steamroller Frevola. Yeah, I fade him a lot, but goodness gracious, I don't even know what them. And this is the problem too. Not only did I not take a winner, but I didn't even bet on the fight because this is the one where someone could go down early, but we could sure the hell have a 15-minute back and forth fight of the year contender too, and that's the problem. But it's a good problem to have, no, because this is not going to be boring. You can't find a boring fight that either man has ever been in, and it's going to be much of the same on Saturday night. I love it. You showed your guy love. We saw him at in Cleveland, UFC 203. It's only right Noah shows love there. I gotta go to one of your other favorite fighters. It is Jessica Andrade, Noah, though, in the featured bout of the evening against Xiaonan Yan. I think it's that way now. It's always the Japanese, Chinese names. I get confused on which goes first. Xiaonan Yan, Jessica Andrade. This should be fun. Jessica back at 115 again. Never commits to a weight class. She'll fight at 155 for all it matters. Maybe against Kayla Harrison in the PFL for all I know. And she is coming off of a loss. Got finished by Erin Blanchfield, man. Before that was on a tear. Xiaonan Yan back in the win column. She beat Mackenzie Dern last year. Before that, had lost 2 in a row. This is an interesting one. Jessica Andrade is the powerhouse, the workhorse, someone you don't want to mess with in that cage for too long. And for Yan, good hands, quick boxing speed. I think on the feet, it's actually pretty interesting. Like I saw some people, even GC, I think, took Yan at plus 160. I could see a lot of people betting Andrade in this spot because of her championship caliber and what she's done, who she's fought. This is a tough one for me. You being a big Andrade fan, what is your initial thoughts on this matchup? I like the matchup, but just like, what do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah, Andrade's my favorite fighter in all the women's divisions. I will say for Xiaonan, Dom, I did bet on her as an underdog against Mackenzie Dern in that main event.
Okay,
so,
okay.
No, yeah, not. We'll talk about my bets for this fight.
Yeah.
But for that one, she was an underdog against Mackenzie Dern in that main event. I took her. I think it was a split decision, but she clearly won that fight. The stand-up's good. I think she's a more technical striker than Andrade, while still packing a punch, to her credit. But Andrade is the more complete fighter, which is kind of saying a lot, Dominic, because Andrade's never known for her technical skill, more so known for her brute force and aggression and power. But yet she is the more complete fighter here. She has a ground game. She has the ability to submit her opponent. Xiaonan has never done it, Dom. She's never accumulated a submission win. We very rarely even see her go to the ground. Let's not forget her lowest moment in the UFC was that loss to Carla Esparza, where she got dominated with Esparza on top. Got a second round finish for Esparza. That says a lot. Esparza never been much of a finisher, but the ground and pound in that fight, Xiaonan just didn't have an answer. So to me, Dominic, the question here comes, can Andrade mix the martial arts here? Can she, for one, threaten with the power, but is she also going to have that ability to change levels, look for takedowns, look for ways to take Xiaonan out of her comfort zone? Because if it stays standing for 15 minutes, Andrade can win it, because she has the power to change any round, any fight in her favor.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think Xiaonan's the better striker overall, and it could be a dangerous fight for Andrade if she looks to just try to get her out of there with the big shot.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. And what do you think implication wise in this one? Do you think there's high stakes? Do you think there's a title shot on the line? I don't know what's going on at 115. Even Dana said today they haven't had any news for Zhang Weili. You know, she hasn't fought in so long, which seems like a shame. I don't know. Like, does a big win here for either put him in the driver's seat, maybe?
Well, I'm glad you asked me. I'm the guy who said after Amanda Lemos beat Marina Rodriguez, there was a 0% chance she would fight for the title after that, which at first looked really bad. But they haven't made the fight.
Exactly.
Which kind of tells me they're not super convinced.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand by my girl here, Dom. I think Andrade deserves a title shot at strawweight if she wins here. She deserves it over Lemos. She beat her last year.
And the rematch with Weili.
Yeah, I know the fight with Blanchfield did not go her way. That was at 125 pounds. That's the thing for Andrade, man. Is she going to stick with a division or not? Is she going to just keep going up and down?
Yeah.
I understand also you just made a good point. She has fought the champion before in Weili, and that was a very quick, thorough beating from Weili in China.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't really I feel like if the UFC really wanted the Lemos fight, they would have made it by now.
I agree.
And that tells me that they are looking for something here. I actually think Zhang Weili, Yan Xiaonan feels like a fight that feels like a fight that they would want to do and take over to China or somewhere like that. I don't know, but they'd probably just do it at the fucking Apex or something. I mean, just whatever. But yeah, I think there could be big stakes here that people aren't quite ready for. Like,
yeah,
you're right though. Strawweight's such a fun division, but feels like there's a lot of nothing going on right now. You got Rose, who's kind of who knows where she's at. Joanna retired.
Yeah.
I'm saying Lemos has a 0% chance for a title fight, and she's clearly the person that's kind of in the driver's seat for one right now.
Carla's having a baby.
From her in months. Yeah, look at that. Just, I hope she didn't fight with it. Dominic sure thinks that they all
God,
do, so,
bless America. Who's your third fight, Noah? Who's the next fight?
The next fight I'm going to get into. You served that one up for me, Dom. Let's talk about, let's talk about the return of Kron Gracie taking on Charles Jourdain, Air Jourdain. Great nickname, great Canadian man that Charles Jourdain is. But Dominic, Charles Jourdain, fun fact about him, as great of a fighter as he can be, has given some really tough fights to guys like Shane Burgos and whatnot. He's 4-5 in the UFC.
Yeah.
And a draw.
Yeah.
He's 4-5-1.
Mm-hmm.
Under 500 records. Seems to be one of those guys that gives a lot of really tough fights to the true contenders or the more promising fighters that he goes up against. Nathan Wood he lost to in his last outing. I said Shane Burgos before that. He had that third round submission loss to Julian Erosa back in a couple years ago. So Kron Gracie's a huge X factor here, though, Dominic, because we have not seen him since, I want to say, like 2018, 2019, something like that.
It's been a minute. What was it? October 2019. Yep. Cub Swanson.
Yeah, he had that fight with Cub Swanson. That was a banger, but also was strange because Kron Gracie, up until that point, was 5-0, and all 5 wins were via submission. Hence the last name. Gracie. And he decided to have like a stand-up war with Cub Swanson. Very strange.
Yeah.
Didn't know when we'd ever see him again, but he's back. And Dominic, this is one of those fights that I have no idea how it's going to go. Because Charles Jourdain is a tough, tough guy. And it's possible that there's also been some weird vibes with Kron Gracie this week. I don't know if you've been seeing
super duper weird. Yeah.
He seems like he is not happy about being involved with this fight week. You had the thing with Henry Cejudo and him when they were signing the posters.
I'm getting Nick Diaz vibes.
Yeah, I mean he is a friend of the Diaz brothers, right?
Hmm.
So maybe he's trying to play that role a little bit. But with that being said, Dominic, my biggest value prop for this card that I took is Kron Gracie by submission at plus 240. I took it. I am not super confident in it because again, it would not surprise me if Charles Jourdain like goes in there and dominates. Like if Kron Gracie's just not it,
Yeah,
or if this fight just ends up being a lot closer than that. And like it will not surprise me if Jourdain wins this fight. I think he's. I don't know if he's the favorite to do it, but
he is.
he is okay. But you're gonna give me Gracie by submission at plus 240. I mean,
Dude,
you gotta take a stab at it, right?
he's okay. Jourdain minus 175, Gracie plus 150. That means that they should have made the submission prop plus 155. There's no reason they should have went all the way to plus 240 for that because he ain't
Yeah.
winning if it ain't by sub. So yeah, I do love the value there. I don't know, man. I don't know what we're gonna see in this fight because Jourdain loves to be in like fun banger type fights, but he is the type of guy that could slip up, make a mistake, and Kron can capitalize that on that easily and get a submission win. But if Kron's trying to stay on the feet again like he did against Cub, you're not winning this fight with Charles Jourdain. He's got that fucking dog in him. Look at his fight with Shane
Yeah.
Burgos. He was coming back
Hmm.
and gonna win that fight if it went any longer. So not a clue.
He
The
turned
vibes are
Shane
so
Burgos
weird.
into a wrestler in that fight.
Yeah, yeah, and have fun. You saw Shane's last fight against OEM. He ain't a wrestler, so that's got to be telling you guys something. I don't know what we're seeing in this one, but I'm definitely intrigued by it. Noah, for my next one, I'm traveling all the way down to shit. This might even be on the early prelims. It's definitely a prelim fight. More strawweight action. We got another big one. I believe it's what, number 5 versus number 9, something like that.
Mhm.
Marina Rodriguez, Virna Jandiroba. It should be fun. Man, I love Marina Rodriguez. She lost to Amanda Lemos in a title eliminator. Well, kind of a title eliminator, anyways, depending on how you look at it. And Noah called it. He called that one from the bleachers. He said, this is a trap fight. It's a trap line. Look what happened. Lemos smash. I mean, to be honest, she did get a finish in the third round. Marina, though, still to me, is a very, very good fighter, man. And I still have high hopes for Marina to one day maybe challenge for that gold at 115, no matter how hard it may be. But she was on a tear before that Lemos fight. And Virna is good, but it's like, I don't know. It's a strange UFC career for Virna. She's fun to watch. She's exciting. She is in, really cool fights. But in terms of like high level mixed martial arts, I view Marina higher. However, her takedown defense has been anything but, high level mixed martial arts. And Virna definitely has an advantage there and in the jiu-jitsu, but she likes getting into wars and being on the feet with people. And if she wants to do that against Marina, I think that's a bad, bad decision to make here. But I am very much intrigued to see how much of Marina's left if she still wants to reach the epitome of this division. And for Virna, this is a chance. Like, yeah, she's fought big names, Carla, McKenzie, Amanda Hebos. She's lost all 3 of those. Can she win that big one to really put her in there with some of these top 7, top 8 ladies? That's what I'm looking for.
Wow. Shout out to Dominic, giving them their shine there. I did not think we would. I didn't even think we'd say that much about. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like both of them, but as far as the stakes, I
Right.
didn't really look at this fight as. I mean, for Marina, clearly she's still someone who could, I think, right now fight for a title at some point. Virna, I don't know. You made a very good point about the style here, Dominic. I will describe it as such.
Mm.
Virna Jandiroba is the easiest tough fight for Marina Rodriguez right now.
Easiest tough fight. Yeah. That's a good description, actually, of her whole career. She's always
It
giving
is-
tough fights, win or
It
lose.
is not a gimme fight because I think Virna does present a style that can be a big problem for Marina. You mentioned the takedown defense. Let's not forget Virna Jandiroba. She got them clamps on her, Dom. She's able to lock in submissions from anywhere.
Yes.
Again, Marina Rodriguez, more of that striking.
Yes.
Very heavily more so a striker. Muay Thai, is it? Right?
Yes.
Muay Thai striking.
Yes.
So, big style clash here. But the reason I said easiest is because Dominic, kind of like what you were talking about with Belal Muhammad, I have so much confidence that Virna Jandiroba is not going to fight the style that she needs to best set herself up for a win. You
Yeah.
said it was a weird UFC career for her. I don't know if I'd really describe it as such. Like, I think she's got a career that we've seen a few different times from people in the UFC, where it's like they're fun, they're good, but unfortunately, fight IQ or
Mm.
maybe that lure of kind of getting into some of those wars just really holds them back from ever truly being like a real player at the top of the division. But she'll always flirt with it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that description.
Is there anything else on this card for you, Dom? I will mention in passing, Daniel Santos, Johnny Munoz Jr. is off the card.
Yep.
I
Yep.
saw that just before we started recording. Chaos Williams back on this card. He's a pretty big favorite going up against Rolando Bedoya, is it? Or, yeah, Bedoya.
What a way to be
Sounds-
welcome to the UFC, bud. Woo.
Yeah, tough one. Even though he's a guy that's interesting as well. 13-1 coming in here. And then Dominic, we got the UFC debut of
Oh, boy.
Braxton Smith
That's a
taking
big one.
on the Pork Man, Parker Porter. Braxton Smith is 5-1. Dominic, he has never even came close to sniffing. You don't even know what a second round is, Dominic. He thinks it's still 1993, where the rounds just it's just
Keep
one
going.
round. It goes 30 damn minutes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I'm sure Kron Gracie would love that because apparently he wants 1-round fights again. So
this is true.
anyways, that's really all I got for this card. There is some good action on here though. Phil Hall, Zikram, Aliskerov, or however you say it, I think will be a banger. I could be taking Doms here. So Dominic, anything
No,
else you want
I'm
to touch
out.
on?
No, there's fun fights, but again, when we talk about storylines and takeaways, I think we hit the big ones.
Yeah. Also tough that Bryce Mitchell's out. That fight with
Yeah.
Movsar Evloev, I was really excited for. Now Movsar's still on the main card, taking on debuting. Sorry, I don't have
Diego
his name on my
Lopez.
sheet. Thank you.
Another
So,
tough debut.
Very tough debut. Movsar Evloev 16-0. Dominic, he does feel like this is kind of going to be one of those fights. More than likely, if he wins, you won't really remember on his in his career, but he does seem like a guy that's inevitably going to fight the top of the division at some point.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So let's move on to one, Dom. Fight night. It's actually happening the day before the UFC, Friday night, Amazon Prime, in Broomfield, Colorado. I don't know if they're saying Broomfield or if they're saying Denver, but I'm going to say Broomfield, damn it, because I was...
Give him the love.
Yeah, because TripAdvisor was, I was looking into it. But
Yeah.
regardless, the trilogy bout that we've all been waiting for, Demetrious Johnson, coming off that win, that amazing, highlight reel worthy knockout to Adriano Moraes. He looks to do it twice in a row. And Dominic, the big storyline coming in here seems to be that Demetrious Johnson's sort of flirting retirement at this point. He's kind of saying he doesn't know how many fights he has left. He has said in an interview with, I believe it was actually the Spinning Back Fist guys over at Barstool. I believe he said that, he doesn't think he has many left. This could be it for him, he said. Obviously, that's more of a Monday thing. We'll kind of see what happens there. But I guess this is a big moment for one, right? Like these promotions that do not tend to be in America much. Pride back in the day is the best comparison. They always get compared to them. But Pride went to America, I think, twice in their run, and it was some of the biggest cards. Just felt like huge moments in time. Do you think one can replicate that here? Does this feel like 1X last year felt like a big deal, right? That felt like a big card. I think it was their 10-year anniversary card. But is this fight and this card Friday night, Dominic, going to be kind of that BKFC moment last week? Is this going to be their biggest moment of their run as a promotion?
I'd love it if it could be. I think it would be awesome for them to continue breaking into the market over here for the domestic U.S. But that's oh man, especially when you're talking like those two things that Pride has done and the just stacking it. Like, don't get me wrong, they loaded this up. Demetrious as your headliner, of course, is like a no-brainer here if you're going to be in the States. But you have championship fights with Rodtang, and I believe it's Muay Thai. You have Rene de Ritter competing in a grappling match. You have Stant Fairtex competing in a very important fight in their division at atomweight. So they definitely put a lot of their big talents on, and at the same time, while doing that, they are letting people see, okay, like, yeah, they fight in MMA, but here's their main things, Renee and the grappling, Rodtang doing, the Muay Thai and stuff. And I think that's something cool that they're doing that for a reason. They made these matches for a reason. Yes, they put their big names, but they're doing it in the other aspects of one so that we here in the States get to see more than just a couple big MMA fights. So I hope it's huge. I hope all the fights are super fun. I hope the grappling matches are intriguing and enticing to watch. It's hard to have a moment like BKFC did last week, and a lot of that's because Connor did finish the card for them. But don't get me wrong, the fights were great too, and that's saying a lot coming from me, guys. Believe that. So I hope it's big. I think it will be big, not as big as BKFC.
Man, that's interesting, Dominic, because I think there's magic at the First Bank Arena.
There's
I think
something
this
in
is
the air.
one's moment to shine. I think it's their moment to shine here. They're going all out for this card. They are making sure every big name in their promotion is on here somewhere. They're like, listen, Renee, if you don't want to fight MMA, that's fine. But at least can you grapple somebody, please? Like,
Yeah.
can we get you on here somehow? So no, they're doing a good job of really stacking this thing. Agla Song is on here as well. He was when we first started watching one. That was like the end of his run as a dominant 2-division champion for one. But back to the main event, I kind of got off topic here. The big X factor. I don't want to keep using that. I feel like I'm overusing X factor, but I guess the element of this fight that has me most curious as to how it'll affect one particular guy is the elevation for Adriano Moraes. Moraes is a big guy, a
True.
massive guy. Demetrious Johnson, I believe, will have no issue at all.
Yeah.
He is the ultimate professional. He is one of the best athletes in combat sports history.
Yeah.
The dude's an absolute beast. He will be fine. Adriano Moraes is the much bigger guy here, the much stronger guy.
That's such a good point.
But carrying that weight, carrying that muscle that he has as an advantage, it can also end up being to his detriment, Dom. If he can't do what he did in the first fight against Mighty Mouse where he knocked him out in the second round, I think Mighty Mouse does something similar that he did last fight. I think he kind of holds on for the first 2 rounds, and then he really steps it up in rounds 3, rounds 4. Potentially gets Moraes out of there before the final bell sounds. What do you think about that?
No, that's actually a really good point. I always tend to forget about the elevation in some of those states.
I never make note of it, and this time I was like, okay, I got to remember it because it does have an effect.
Well, remember in the heading into the trilogy with Leon and Kamaru, he said in Utah, he was that's why he looked tired, and it's something you don't think about a lot in this sport, but you see it with the NBA, for example. People go play one game against the Denver Nuggets, and they can't even play that many minutes. It's a different type of thing out there. It'd be interesting to just experience that in some sort of capacity. So I think that's a very valid point to bring up. Demetrious has been there and done that. He's fought in it below sea level, above sea level. He's fought at everywhere, every type of elevation imaginable. He's trained for every type of situation. Adriano's young in this game. Is he ready for that? How will his body hold up? Yeah, as you said, big guy. When they get in the cage, we've seen it twice already. The size difference is unfathomable. It looks like 2 weight classes separate the 2 guys. So I like that point. And to that point, regardless of who wins, I do think we see it end inside the distance now. That 5 round, 25 minutes, I don't know, man. I think we got the ingredients are all in the pot for something fun to happen.
No, I completely agree. Let's move on to the rest of one Fight Night 10. Dominic, I'll open the floor to you here. I don't think we'll spend a ton of time on the rest. This will probably be something we might hit a lot of on Monday, but it is a massive card. I think due to our unfamiliarity with one and the history of it, it does keep us limited in kind of what we can talk about in terms of preview, in terms of stakes. But Dominic, anywhere you want to go first on this one?
Well, I'm excited for basically two big things for me, and it's one is to see Rodtang in, the Muay Thai aspect where he is his bread and butter. I'm excited to see that, and
Mhm.
it's also a championship fight. And I'm excited to see Rene de Ritter in a grappling match, just to see we've seen his greatness in MMA fights, but to really see it against another grappler in that domain, that's something I've even wanted to watch more on Fight Pass is when they do the big grappling events and they have
Mhm.
big names come do it. So maybe this is kind of that start for me. So I want to see him grapple. Oh, and I guess one more thing. Sage Northcutt is back for the first time in like 3 years since he broke his face. So it'll be interesting to see how do you come back from a brutal injury like that off of a layoff, Noah. That's my three um what's the thing? I don't know. Those are my three things for this card that I'm
Wow.
excited for.
Well, I'm glad Dominic took three of the biggest things outside the main event, so really limiting my options here. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm actually shocked that you went with two non MMA. Like, I get it, big deals. Rodtang, he's that dude. Rene de Ritter, also that dude.
That dude.
But I'm a little surprised. Like, I feel like for you, and I mean, you can, I'm not trying to, like, by no means, because I'm not trying to pretend like I feel all that different. But I felt like for you, Dominic, maybe that's been something that's held you back from getting too into one. Is like you're
Mm,
more of an MMA guy at the end of the day. So these other, even though it's very unique what one offers as a full platter, it's not your cup of tea necessarily. All this other, the grappling, the Muay
mm-hmm.
Thai, boxing, you prefer just MMA, and that's, I mean, that's kind of for me too. Back. I can only speak for myself that now I've kind of gotten more open to it. I've become a bigger boxing fan. Obviously, we
Mm-hmm.
have a good buddy who does jiu-jitsu, who has started to do
Yeah.
competitive jiu-jitsu. It has definitely made me become more interested in some of the other arts, Dominic. Is that kind of where you're at right now?
Yeah, I think so for sure. And when I've already gotten to see Renee and Rodtang both in MMA, I mean, I guess Rodtang kind of had the mixed rules thing too a little bit, but you get my point. When I've seen
Mm.
them there and I got to watch them, I'm like, okay, damn, they're pretty good at MMA. Now I want to see them in their domain. Just how good are they in that
Right.
aspect of the game? And I think that, being friends with Jake, going to that jiu-jitsu tournament and seeing that, it's definitely cool. Again, it's not something I'm going to necessarily go out of my way to watch all the time with one, but when you're giving me these big names that have dabbled in MMA and I get a chance to see them in their sport, that's what makes me excited for sure.
No, I completely agree with you, and I will mention on the MMA side a guy that I think if you're not aware of him now, Dominic, come Monday you will be hopefully. Roberto Soldic.
Okay. Okay.
I could be butchering that last name. I apologize if I am. So Soldic, this is his second outing in one. His first one unfortunately ended in a no contest. He's taken on Sebastian Kadastam here. Soldic is from KSW, Dominic. I know we have not really watched much KSW. Actually, I can say I've never watched KSW, but very popular over in Europe and like massively popular. And this dude was an absolute, I mean, just
It looks like it.
all time type fighter over there. Dominic, I don't know if you're looking at his record. I hope you're not. If you are, click away right now because I'm going to ask you a question about his resume.
Oh, I think I saw it already. Damn it. Go ahead though.
I knew, but yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
bring up Drickus as his real
Yeah.
loss, like that he's had that's of relevance. And obviously, Drickus is on the, I mean, he's on very close to a title fight. So I
Yeah.
think Roberto, I keep wanting to say Roberto Soldic is a guy that if any of you do not know who he is, I gotta give a shout out to Pete Carroll. He's been the guy really championing this guy. I think he's even said at one point that he is the best fighter not signed to the UFC. So
Damn.
he
Okay.
believes very highly in his talent. I'm excited. This will be my first time really getting to see him fight. I did not see his debut, or at least I don't remember seeing it. Very excited to see what he offers because that's a lot to put on a guy to say he is the best fighter outside of the UFC. And Dominic, I got to mention Ong Song. He's back here, 29-13 now. Could be coming towards the end of his MMA career. He's taking on Fan Rong, who's coming off a loss to Vitaly Bigdash, who's obviously a stud for one right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Angla Song is a guy that always brings a lot of fun fights. He's only got 8 decisions in his 42 fight professional MMA career, so I think this one will be a lot of fun. And Fan Rong's only got 2 decisions in 22 fights, so if that tells you the kind of action you can expect to get with that one, then yeah, I think this fight's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get a bit of everything. Sage Northcutt back. I'm excited to see how he looks. Dominic, like you said, we gotta love Super Sage. So a little bit of everything here. A little bit of star power, MMA, a little bit of Muay Thai, grappling, everything and anything. It's on here.
It should be fun.
Yeah, so with that, we will move on to the fight announcements portion of the show. We got a little bit of extra, a little gravy on potatoes, Dominic. But we'll start with the potatoes, the fight announcements themselves. We've had a shakeup in our main event for next month's pay-per-view event, UFC 289. It will no longer be the first ever trilogy in women's UFC history. It will instead be Amanda Nunes taking on a fresh challenger, Irene Aldana. Which, Dominic, this is interesting because Aldana was scheduled for a main event on May 20th against Raquel Pennington. So now she's out of that fight into this title fight. I know we talked about this before because Irene Aldana was, of course, the rumored next challenger for Nunes, and then out of nowhere it was Pena the third time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the time when they announced Pena, I was sort of meh on it, but I kind of said it's probably the best, most interesting fight you can do right now because she does have a win over Nunes, etc. But I got to be honest, Dominic. When they got announced Aldana was stepping in here, my excitement for this fight actually went up a little bit. It actually did kind of improve it for me. And I think a big factor for it is the Viva Mexico here. We have a chance for a 4th Mexican-born UFC champion. That would be absolutely insane to imagine. When I first started watching MMA just in 2016, this idea that you could 7 years from then have 4 Mexican-born UFC champions, I would have never thought that was possible. Boxing has dominated that market for so long.
Yeah, and now...
Sorry. Let me go ahead and say the rest of them, and then I'll let you kind of go from there. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson out versus Michelle Pereira. That's a tough blow also to UFC 289. UFC Jacksonville, Dominic, how about Brendan Allen getting staying fighting within that month? He's taking on Bruno Silva, so I was dead wrong. I said Bruno Silva would likely get a guy who was kind of unheralded. It felt like this was the time to give him that 15 matchup, and they probably wouldn't. But they did. And so maybe Jack Hermansson's misfortune is Bruno Silva's is helping out Bruno Silva quite a bit here. So, Dominic, those are the fight announcements. What do you think of everything here?
No, I'm right with you. Aldana just excites me so much more. I guess storyline-wise, there's not as much as Juliana, but what we get in return is still a storyline, but on Irene's side, to continue this absolute run of terror that these Mexican fighters are having right now in the UFC to become the 4th champion in just this year, in just the first, what would be 6 months of the year, is unfathomable. And honestly, her paired up with Amanda physically, that ain't no cakewalk, I don't think, for Amanda, dude. I'll be shocked if Amanda comes in and steamrolls Aldana. I'll put it that way. That may be a bit bold, but I don't know, man. I like Irene, and there's just so much riding on this one. Amanda, I still don't know. How much does she truthfully really have left in this game? I don't know. There's just a lot of questions. That fight is better. So that's definitely my favorite. Obviously, we lose Thompson and Michelle. Brendan Allen, Bruno Silva, here for it. Called my shot with Kaio, didn't get it. He'll still get a co-main event next time. Don't worry about that. It just won't be Brendan Allen that he's getting it with. UFC Jacksonville is getting a lot of low-key fun fights. Not a ton of rankings and stuff, big names, but a lot of low-key bangers that I've been seeing on Twitter. Shout out to Big Marcel. So that's going to be fun. And that's pretty much all I can say.
I actually want to touch on, because I could probably say most of what you said, rinse and repeat for me. outside of the fact that I probably don't believe Aldana and Nunes is that competitive, but you know how I am with Nunes. I
Hmm.
think she's top fighter all time. And yes, the first Pena fight has to still be in the mind a little bit. But Dominic, don't forget that second fight. Don't forget the way
Hmm.
Nunes, I mean, just made Pena look like she
Yeah.
did not belong at all.
Yeah.
Aldana's looked very good, but it's hard for me to get past in her biggest moments, like the Holly Holm fight.
Hmm.
I know he'll be coming up on 3 years ago, so a lot of time to improve. But that was a moment where she could have won and got herself a title fight. She got 50-45
Yeah.
across the way. Speaking of Holly Holm, Dom, let me present an idea that you'll probably just love as much as I do.
Oh
That
boy.
main event spot on May 20th, you lose your first ever women's trilogy bout with Pena Nunes, and you gain one in the main event of May 20th as Raquel Pennington takes on Holly Holm for the third time. Do you think that'd be a good consolation prize for the main event of that card?
I think so, actually. I mean, I know, like, main event wise, probably shouldn't be a main
Come on,
event,
Dom.
right?
What are you doing? I
No, no,
thought
no,
you
no,
were
no.
gonna shit all over that idea.
Like, it shouldn't be a main event at all. We talk about this
Mm,
time and time again. But as a fight just being made, that's next up. The winner of that follows Irene.
no.
Juliana, I guess, is I don't know I forget what the
I
injury was. Broke her ribs, I think. Juliana broke her ribs,
I
I think
have
is
no
the
idea.
injury. But Rocky, Holly, it's 2-0 Holly though, right?
I have no
Is it?
idea.
Where is it? Wow,
I'm
that would
pretty
be the
sure
first
it's
trilogy
2-0.
in UFC women's history.
I
Holy shit
believe
balls.
so.
I never
Yeah.
realized that Juliana and Amanda would be. Never would have thought it would be Rocky versus Holly. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they make that fight. That's all I got. Shouldn't be a main event though.
It really shouldn't, but also at least it has stakes to it. I mean, I will
Yeah.
say that it should probably be the next title challenger. I'll give you that. I did not think I'd say that. I've not been saying a lot of nice things about Holly Holm on here.
Yeah, true.
There's one.
Look at you.
Continue to fight announcements. We do have some quotes from some guys. Everybody looking for a fight, Dom.
Seems that way. Well, kind of.
Let's start with Kamaru Usman. We've been kind of wondering what's next for him after he lost to Leon Edwards to cap off their trilogy. Dominic, what do you think about this? He called for his next fight to be against Khamzat Chimaev. And I quote, this is Kamaru Usman, of course. I'm kind of in a place right now where I'm having fun with it. So it's like, what's the biggest, most fun, most intense fight that really makes me feel something? That's a fight right there. That could main event a pay per view.
Mm.
Your
Mm.
thoughts?
I see nothing wrong there with that statement. I like it. I like it. I saw Dana even got questioned about it. Said he likes it, but he said catch weight does nothing for this fight. It has to be at 185, not
Yeah,
170,
very interesting, right?
185 pounds. So
Yeah, that's
the UFC
interesting.
has definitely said, fuck welterweight for Khamzat Chimaev. They're done with him being at 170. That's for sure after what happened in September. And, that's okay. Kamaru and Khamzat, stylistically, weight class aside, sign me up for it. Sign me up. 7 days a week, twice on Sunday, Noah. Absolutely. Give it to me. Could it main event a pay per view? Probably won't, but could it? Absolutely. It absolutely could, I think. If you stack
Yeah,
it with some other big fights, why not give Kamaru his due?
yeah. It won't happen because Kamaru kind of even said in this longer quote, this is just a portion of the statement. He did say that he would take that fight because if he wins, he could get another shot with Leon Edwards. If it's at 185 pounds, I mean, I know the UFC have done some shit like that before, like where they kind of give you, Connor might get a fucking lightweight title fight if he knocks out Michael Chandler at welterweight. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
just fighting things. So, um, I would love to see it. And actually, of course, when I first put it on here, I was in my head thinking 170, and I'm like, yeah, of course, I want to see Hamza go to 185, but a fight with Kamaru, like Dominic, I know Kamaru lost the belt, but we were talking about that in 2020 and 2021 is like that is the fight.
Mm.
And it feels massive to me. Like, yes, Kamaru may just be a tad step slower to the point where Khamzat just goes in there and dominates him. But even in Kamaru's losses to Leon, he has not been dominated. Like, it's hard to even imagine him seeming so vulnerable.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. But I would love to see it, and now I'm kind of open to the idea of 185. If Kamaru was willing to do it, I'd love to see him go up to 185.
And I just want to point out one common trend here, because we tend to talk about Khamzat in the fight announcement portions lately. Or not even fight announcement portions, but just matchmaking with him.
I know where this is going.
And we always say, that'd be a massive fight. Well, there's a common theme. When we say it's a massive fight, Khamzat is one half of that fight. What does that tell you people about just him?
Oh,
like his aura and like
Okay.
what he has become. I just had to point that out.
Sorry,
What
I
were you
really
thinking?
I thought you were going a different direction. I thought you were going to mention how we keep talking about him and all these fun matchups.
Oh,
Where is he? Where he at though?
that's also true. That's 100% true.
My man ain't fight. Everybody's just acting like, yep, we'll see him in October at Abu Dhabi. Why? Why do we have to wait?
I know.
Is my
He's
man
been tweeting about stuff too.
Is my man trapped? Can
I
my
don't
man
know.
not get out of the country?
I don't know what's going on.
I
hate having to wait that long to see.
I know he's a gangster, Dom. But I didn't know he ran around like that. We talking about some Kinahan shit? The shit that wouldn't let the Furies into the States? Is that what Khamzat's got going on? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Something's weird there, because why is it going to be over a year when Khamzat, yes, I know that was a huge debacle at 279.
But he took no damage.
He did not. He made Kevin Holland look silly.
Yeah. We're missing out prime time stuff here.
No, I mean, Dominic, this man fought 3 times in like a month, and then it's been twice in 2 years since then.
Yeah.
Am I right on
Sucks.
that?
Yeah,
Feels like
basically.
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying to compete with Colby Covington at this point to be the least active fighter in welterweight. I mean, and that's not disrespectful. Well, it is, but I don't mean it to be, because I don't want Khamzat to fucking slit my throat. But ultimately, like, this guy became so popular due to his activity.
Yeah.
And now it's like, why is it taking a year to get him back in there? Or maybe he's injured. There may be a lot of things we don't know here.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate when someone's a little more upfront, because Khamzat, everything he just says is how he wants to kill everybody and wants to fight everybody.
Yeah, fight everybody.
That's all I keep hearing from him. I mean, I think it's interesting, Dom. We have not heard anything about him and Darren Till ever since Darren left the UFC. Like, what, are they done hanging out? Are they done being boys?
I don't know.
Trouble in paradise, Dom? Did they break up? Is Khamzat going through a tough breakup? Is that why we can't see him till October? And why is Paulo Costa being tabbed as the opponent? Is that for sure? Uncle Chael, you're the one that said that. Is that a fact that they're fighting?
I know. I've literally seen never anything else about that fight. But everybody's saying that's the fight.
One more thing, Dominic. We've already kind of talked about this, because John Jones did tweet how he's like, wouldn't it be great? You know, it's one of those tweets where you read it and you imagine that John was like kind of looking up into the clouds as he's saying it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if I could retire at MSG, not dominating the greatest heavyweight of all time? And we all were like, damn, he's really serious about this being it, huh? Dominic, he doubled down.
Yeah, he did.
Here's the quote from John Jones. I think the Stipe fight will be plenty for me. I feel like I don't really have much to prove after beating Stipe Miocic. ... I do believe a Francis Ngannou fight would be worth entertaining, not retiring. I think a Francis fight would come with some serious revenue, and that would make it worth my while. Dominic, are you calling his bluff here, or is the double down making you more confident that, like, okay, maybe that really is the last fight?
The double down's making me call my own bluff. Because I think I said when we talked about the tweet, I was like, nah, sign an 8-fight deal. You're still in your prime year, especially now at heavyweight.
You got sold wolf tickets, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but now, maybe I definitely agree. Like, maybe nothing's getting him out of bed anymore. If he beats Stipe, huge legacy building moment. And then anything other than Francis, what's the point? What's in it for me? I'm speaking for John. So I'm in now. Yeah, I buy it. It's unfortunate, but I agree.
Yeah, I stand by what I said before. I think that means he will not retire because a year from now he will be fighting Francis Ngannou for heavyweight
Oh, I
title.
forgot
So.
you did add that part in last time. I remember that.
Although I guess this whole PFL thing's really throwing a wrench in that. But I don't know. Who knows what the deal is? We hadn't even
John
heard
Jones,
a deal yet.
John Jones, PFL pay-per-view, Francis Ngannou. What a world. Holy shit balls, what a world.
John Jones versus Francis Ngannou boxing match. Game Bred Boxing 10, 9.
Wow. Wow. Look into it.
Bare knuckle fight. John Jones versus Francis Ngannou versus Conor McGregor versus
Triple
Mike
threat.
Perry.
Fatal four-way
Fatal
match.
four-way. Yeah.
That's it. There it is.
Or you do tag team John Jones, Conor, Francis, Mike Perry.
I think I like that better.
The
Tag
African fighters versus the guys that are like the goats, right?
Yes. There we go.
I don't know what just happened. I think I blacked out for a second.
Yeah.
Let's move on, Dominic. We have changed our betting segment on this show. No longer called the below average bet slip. We will explain what's going on here. Now it's called a little Blazin Bets. So look, you guys don't need us to tell you we kind of suck at betting on MMA. And this was something we were planning to wait and start in 2024. But, I've been feeling like the betting segments felt a little stale, a little bit like it's gone by the wayside, like it's kind of just there at the end of the episode. I've been trying to find some ways to make it more interesting, because if it's just us kind of talking about what we just talked about in the preview portion of the cards, it's like kind of just doubling up on the same information. So we're going to go ahead and start competing, Dominic. We're going to do it. And of course, don't you love that I waited to do it this year and I didn't bring this up last year when you were the one that was definitely getting the better of each week, and I'm waiting till you're at your most vulnerable.
I see what you're doing here, Noah. I get it. Yeah. I get it. I can't say I blame the guy.
So, gotta know when to hold him, know when to fold him, Dominic. And in this case, guys, the minimum of each week, 3 bets per week. I'm sure will be weeks where that is not going to be attainable. If the UFC is not on, if Bellator's not on, Ohio, apparently we can't get PFL. Apparently we can't get one.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
We'll see. We'll play it by ear. But each week we'll come on here. We will give you all of our. It'd be like kind of like how we did with the bet slip. I mean, if you, and there's some strategy here, Dominic, because if you want to go with that 3, that minimum, and just pick the best bets that you have for your week on there, you can. Or if you want to place 12 to 15 and hope that a little over half of them hit and get you to a positive number for that week, you can do that too. But at the end of it, the point is, guys, whoever comes out on top unit-wise at the end of the week is the winner for that week. And we will keep an ongoing score. So by the end of 2023, if I beat Dominic this week, I'll be up 1-0. Dominic beats me next weekend, we'll be tied 1-1. We'll keep track like that. And ultimately, Dominic, this will cap off at the end of the year with a little challenge, the Blazin Challenge, hence the name Blazin Bets. So the loser of this challenge will have to come on here probably for a future verbal sparring if we want to do it like how I did it previously. And we'll have to go through the gauntlet, 10 wings, blazing sauce. It's not fun. And recording a podcast while doing it. Tough. So that is now what we're doing, Dominic. I kind of sprung it on you, but seems like a good time to just kind of freshen things up a little bit. So with that, Dominic, I open the floor to you to present your side for this weekend. Comment below, let us know. Are you siding with Dom? Are you siding with me? Who's going to come out on top this weekend? Let us know. But Dominic, I open the floor to you.
Yeah, I like this little competition side of things. We always are having great conversations, in my opinion, on this show, but we've never really competed or anything. Like we did a matchmaking thing a very, very, very long time ago on the show. So it'll be fun to do this. And like, this is kind of like on the surface, this is the basic level of competition. Cause like Noah said, it's kind of just came out of nowhere, but I think there's a world where we could do even more like monthly things, or like, I don't know, just other things that we can implement as we continue to do it month by month. But for me, I have 4. These were all placed before this was decided, but I mean, it doesn't really change my opinion on anything. I have 4. Maybe we'll go with 5 or 6, but I don't know. It just depends on what lines come out that I like. So, bet number 1, main event, UFC 288, Cejudo Sterling inside the distance plus 110. A violence parlay. We have, let me pull up my other picture. Sorry. Joseph Holmes versus Claudio Ribeiro inside the distance. Phil Hawes, Ikram Aleskarov inside the distance. Third leg, Braxton Smith, Parker Porter inside the distance. 3 legs plus 111. Bet number 3, Marina Rodriguez, straight up money line, minus 130. And the 4th bet, Gilbert Burns, straight up money line, minus 125. Those are the 4 plays. I was coming into this week just wanting to just have any bit of green that I can, just to set straight an absolutely horrendous first part of the year. And last week was very, very bad, an 0 for 8 week last week. So I just wanted something to get my spirits up again. And now I really hope something happens in our competition.
Yeah, it's I part of me wants you to have a good week, Dom, because I hate to see you so down on yourself.
But now
But
you
also,
don't.
if you go 0 and 4 and that continues your losing streak, that would be quite a bit to play up on Monday. So you got to think about the content here, and of course the ongoing competition. Dominic, I have 9 plays for you this week. I came back big after last week was the first time all year because me and Dominic, like I've said, I've always been more of like a quantity over quality type guy. Like I try to just have throw a lot of shit at the wall.
Mhm.
Dominic keeps a smaller bet slip usually, but I know this year's not gone your way. But
Mm.
through the podcast history, you tend to do well, like keeping your circle small, Dom. Like the
Mhm.
Drake, no new friends, no new bets for Dom. So
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
um, I have 9, 7 singles, 2 parlays, and I went heavy on the money lines and the spreads, Dom. The spreads are coming out big this week. Let's start with the main event. I already mentioned it. Aljamain Sterling, money line, minus 110. I will allow Henry Cejudo the opportunity to prove me wrong. I will clap for him if he does, because what a legacy-defining moment. What a reaffirming moment it would be for Henry. But the stat I mentioned, 2 and 28. Tyron Woodley, the only man that defied those odds. I'm going with Sterling. 36 years old for Cejudo, 3-year layoff. It's not a great recipe.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Andrade, Dom, I took her minus 3.5 at minus 110. My mentality on this one is it's going to be interesting to see how these spreads really play out. Last week it went okay for me, but Dominic, it's kind of tough. Like, they're so new that it's kind of hard to evaluate right now, like how much I'm really going to be using them. But I did them quite a bit. I could see this fight going to a decision with Yan Xiaonan. I could see Andrade winning this fight from start to finish. I also believe she can get a finish here. I took
Yeah.
the minus 3.5 to get her at better odds, minus 110. I do favor her quite a bit to win this fight, and therefore that's why I'm kind of taking my chances with a couple different ways that one can cash there. The big one I mentioned earlier, Kron Gracie by submission plus 240. It's the highest value prop I had on here. Actually, if it hits, Dominic, it would be the right now the winner for the Cash It Don't Trash It Joey Award. As of now, Umar Nurmagomedov by finish that you had at the beginning of the year is still our biggest
Is it
hitter
really?
of the year, plus 200. So
Wow.
compare that to Chris Barnett money line last year, plus 350. It is I'm trying to find some of those bigger ones to kind of throw in there. So that one would be it. Marina Rodriguez money line, Dominic, you mentioned it. I completely agree. I think this is a big bout. I think she does get a tough but favorable at the same time matchup with Virna Jandiroba. How about this one, Dominic? I agree with you. I don't think the fight's going to a decision, but if for some some reason it's Braxton Smith plus 3.5 at plus 105. I will take that. I think there's a good chance he finishes this fight pretty quickly. But if Parker Porter gets the upper hand, Dominic, we know the Pork Man likes a good decision every now and then.
He does, yeah.
And even though Braxton Smith's never gone out of that first round, take the plus 3.5 at plus 105. I like the value there. How about this one, Dominic? Zalgaz Zumagulov. I always mess that one up. Plus 305, minus 145. He has a pretty tough opponent. A guy making his debut, but someone who comes in with some pretty good experience. LFA he's fought for before. And but Zalgaz Dominic, I know his record's not been very good in the UFC. I think he's like 1-5, 1-4, something like that. But I'm taking this kind of as a bit, but also because I believe in it. Zalgaz has been on the wrong end of like multiple very close split decisions.
Yeah.
This man is tough to really thoroughly beat him.
Yeah.
So plus 3.5, minus 145, going up against the guy making his debut for the company. I like it. And he's looking like Coconut Head from Ned's Declassified this week. So he's
Dude, the Patty Pimblett tweet was gold. Gold.
Yeah, that was a good tweet. And how about this one? Joseph Holmes money line.
Oh, I like that.
150. I just like the value here. I mean, Joseph Holmes is a guy, actually, fun fact, Dominic, he was my first ever MMA sports
yeah. He was.
And I swore I would never bet on him again because he lost that decision to Jamie Pickett.
I remember that. Wow. That's been so
Joseph
long
Holmes,
ago.
He's 1-2 in the UFC, going up against another Contender Series guy. I just think I go back to the Contender Series. Joseph Holmes looked so good on there. He has not put it all together in the UFC, but at plus 150, going up against another guy who's yet to really come into his own, the value's kind of there for me. So I jumped on it. 2 parlays, like I said. First one, plus 118. No real theme to these. They're kind of a hodgepodge. Kennedy Nzechukwu money line. I like him in this spot here. He's just got such a size advantage. And got hits with such power. It will be interesting to see if he can get who is he? Devin
Clark.
Devin Clark, thank you. It'll be interesting to see if he can actually put away Devin Clark. Devin Clark shown some really good durability throughout his career.
Yeah.
But I just like Kennedy. I like him in the spot against this level of talent. But if you go too much higher, Kennedy's like an automatic fade. Like he just feels like his ceiling is at like this type of level here.
Yeah.
Second leg of that parlay, Marina Rodriguez, Virna Jandiroba over 2.5 rounds. I think that one is that's one that I just like a lot. It's Marina Rodriguez, lots of decisions. Virna Jandiroba, lots of decisions. I could see it being a fun fight, back and forth action. Don't really see either woman picking up a finish here. That's plus 118. The second parlay, plus 112. 3 legs, Dom. Burns Muhammad over 1.5 rounds. Dober Frevola inside the distance. And Chaos Williams money line.
Okay. I like it. A big, hefty slate. I'm here for it.
It is. I also have a couple in boxing this weekend I'll just throw out. These don't count for this competition, but I did take Canelo Alvarez to win in between rounds 1 and 6 at plus 210.
Okay. You said that's in Guadalajara, by the way?
Yeah, Guadalajara, Mexico. It's Cinco de Mayo weekend, so he's going back home.
Oh, yeah. Okay, makes sense. Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's it. We will be back on Monday to let you guys know how the competition goes this weekend. But with that, Dominic, there's only one way we end the show around here. It's with the little segment we like to call closing statements. And Dominic, this is a special weekend in the sports world. As you all know, I spent the last 15 months of my life in the state of Indiana, but very, very close, within sniffing distance to one Louisville, Kentucky, Dominic. The Kentucky Derby is going down this weekend. I would love to bet on the Kentucky Derby. If I could ever learn how to bet on horses, that would be great. It feels like a different world. It's sports betting, but it's not. It is so different, Dominic. You can't do it on the same apps that you do your normal
Yeah.
sports betting. It is a
Yeah.
different world. So I will hopefully learn how to bet on horses by Saturday when I mean, I know there's races going on throughout the weekend. But Dominic, I wanted to ask you, I have the names here of the horses that are competing in the Kentucky Derby this Saturday. And I figured you could tell me just who are you riding with here.
Okay. Okay.
So these are in order by the odds. So the first one I'm going to tell you has the best odds to win. The last one has the worst. So you can take that into account. But the name, if it's a name that's kind of sticking out to you, just let me
That's
know.
what I like with the Derby.
So we got Forte, Tappet Trice, Angel of Empire, Derma Sudagake, Practical Move, King's Barn, Two Fills, Mage, Verifying, Confidence Game, Skinner, Cyclone Mischief, Disarm, It Show, Mandarin Hero, Rocket Can,
Rocky.
Continuar, Jace's Road, Raised Cane, Sun Thunder,
Ooh, I like Canes.
and Reincarnate. What do you got, Dom?
Well, my favorite name, first off, man, I like Raising Cane's chicken. I think Sun Thunder is my favorite name, but you know what? I'm actually glad you brought this up. My grandma texted me yesterday, and one of her friends that she went to high school with way back in the day is a part owner of the horse Mage. So for that reason alone,
Oh,
I may, if I can figure out how to do it. I'm
yeah.
like you. I have no idea how people bet on horses unless I go to like the horse track or the casinos. But I may, if I dabble into the Derby, I think I have to by default bet Mage. So I will go there. Favorite name though is Sun Thunder.
That kind of makes me want to bet on that horse, like with you. Like I feel like
Yeah.
we just as a group. But I will
Let's
be
pay off
putting a
our
little
debt.
bit of money. I will be planning to put money on the 50-1 Raise Cane. Dominic Raising Cane's is the best chicken out there.
Yeah, this is facts.
Raising Cane sauce. Actually, by the way, I don't know if you know this. Before I moved back to Perrysburg, like 2 weeks ago, I had never had Raising Cane's before. Since I've been here, I've ate it like 3 or 4 times.
I mean, I'd bathe in the sauce if I could.
Yeah, that sauce is. There's not much like Dominic. I'm a big do not eat in the car person. Like
Dude,
usually,
same. Yeah, same.
I used to not be like that, but now like I notice like how it dirties up the car quicker and stuff, and it just
Hmm.
bothers me. I cannot resist. As soon as I get the canes,
It
I'm
ain't
like
getting
opening
home.
it. I'm taking out. I'm opening the sauce, dude. I'm going through all the layers
You're
to
driving with
eat
your
some
knee.
of the.
You got both hands up.
Yeah, I can't help it. And then I get
Yeah.
home and it's like all the food's gone. I'm like, oh man, I kind of wish I would have waited. But
Yeah, yeah.
so I think I will have to join you, Dominic, putting some money on a Mage. I will also mention shout out to Skinner, 20-1. That just sounds like a rough and tough Southern horse right there, Skinner.
Skinner. I love the names of horses. I've never Noah, like Dad always has a derby party, doing it again this weekend. I've just never like gotten into like just they did it. They raced the circle. Down the stretch they come. I love that part of it. But my favorite part's always just been hearing all the funky names because it's never been that fun to be. But now, legally able to bet and all that
Yeah.
fun jazz, it could become a thing.
I
For me.
think living in that area where it's such a massive deal
Yeah.
has kind of awoken that in me, and it's such a shame, Dominic. I didn't go to it my first month last year,
Mm,
and then they moved me early, so I couldn't go to
yeah.
it this year. I think I'm gonna try to plan a trip to go next year. Now I hate dressing up. That's one thing I fucking hate,
Yeah.
and you kind of have to for that.
Yeah.
So, but that may be a boys' trip. We'll have to plan to go see the Kentucky Derby in person.
That would be something else.
Yeah.
Would
Pay
question?
the extra to get food and beverage. Apparently, they serve really good food for like lunch buffet type deal. Yeah.
That's what I've heard. Actually, Jaden did like an intern thing there a couple years and told me about the food. Had you not been moved early, would you have went this year? Would you be there this Saturday?
So I was talking to the guy, my mentor in Jeffersonville, and I was like, man, now that it's coming up and I'm not there anymore, like I don't have the choice now, like, man, I'm like, I really wish I could have been there so I could go. And he
Yeah.
goes, bullshit. You would have been watching it on like 10 different screens in your fucking apartment. I'm like, oh. You might be right.
be right.
Like if I was
Yeah.
there, but now that I've been moved out and now it's like been taken away from me,
Yeah.
I wish I was there so I could go. I don't think I'd go by myself. I'd have to go with like.
Oh, you'd
I'd
have
try
to.
get.
Yeah.
I'd have to wrangle the boys
Yeah.
like a sheep herder. I'd be trying to get you guys all in, like those missions in Red Dead Redemption. You know.
Yeah, or like you trying to get us to go to Bloomfield, Colorado for.
Yeah, that
Right.
was a big fail. That did not go my way.
But yeah, okay, okay.
My name's Noah Baker. That's Dominic Slee. We are but just two of the below average Joes, and we'll see you guys on Monday.